This is an interview with Rocco Moretto in the Comfort Inn, Brooklyn, New York. It is the 20th of March, 2003, approximately 9:40 a.m. The interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Rocco, R-O-C-C-O, J for John, Moretto, M-O-R-E-T-T-O.
Okay.
Born June 20th, 1924, in New York City.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to military service?
A high school graduate.
Where were you, and what do you remember about your reaction when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Well, I happened to be listening to the New York Giants Redskin football game. It was on a Sunday afternoon, and my first reaction was, "Where's Pearl Harbor?" I was 17 years old, just 17 at the time.
Did you have any other reactions about what had happened at Pearl Harbor? Or?
No, no. I, you know, being a youngster, I, never gave it much thought.
Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I was drafted. I was with the first group of 18-year-olds to be drafted.
Okay, when were you drafted?
On February the 5th, 1943.
Okay, where was your induction center?
The induction center was at Fort Dix. And we stayed there about a week, got processed, and then I went to Camp Wheeler, Georgia for basic infantry basic training, 13-week cycle.
Okay, did you receive any specialized training at all?
Well, after the cycle was over, I was held over for NCO training, and I kind of screwed up, and I got shipped out.
Should I ask what you did, or shouldn't I?
Yeah, well, we were happened to be standing. We were standing guard, and we were in a guardhouse at the time, and one of the prospective guards was sleeping, so I got a firecracker and I lit it and I tossed it under his bed, and the sentry walking post started screaming for the officer of the guard, and then he came and he had his rifle at port arms at the entrance, and wouldn't let anybody in or out. And when the OD came in, he asked who fired the firecracker, and he asked me first. I said, I don't know. And the next guy he asked, he says, I know who done it. And I said, well, forget it, I done it. And that was the end of that. I got shipped to Camp Swift, Texas.
How did you get much leave time off the bases in Georgia and Texas at all, or?
No, I had a week's I think a week's furlough from Texas, and that was the only furlough that I had.
Did you go back home for that, or?
Yeah, I went home, right.
How did you feel? Was this your first time away from home?
Yes.
How did you feel about it?
Well, I was kind of confused at the outset, at the beginning. It was hard to distinguish my left from my right. But it kind of sunk in after a while.
Okay, after Texas, where did you go?
Well, then they shipped me to Camp Wheeler, to near Baltimore, Fort Meade, which was sort of a port of embarkation. And they gave us clothing and things of that sort. And from there we went to Camp Miles Standish, which was outside of Boston, which was actually the port of embarkation. And from there we took a train to Nova Scotia and boarded the Mauritania and went to England.
Did you go in a convoy or a single ship?
No, it was it went alone. It was a big English passenger ship, and those big ships that didn't require a convoy.
Were you assigned to a unit before you left, or?
No, we were all replacements.
Replacements, okay. And where did you land?
In Liverpool. And from Liverpool, we went by train to Birmingham, which was a sort of an induction center. From there, they sent you out to various. You got processed, and you went to various units. I fortunately went to the 1st Infantry Division, who were stationed, who had just come back from Sicily, and they were in need of replacements.
How were you accepted as a replacement in the unit?
Oh, real good. I was very pleased about that. These fellows were combat veterans that had made the invasion of Africa and Sicily, and they really treated us good. As a matter of fact, the company commander at the time said that, well, they took us aside and tried to give us some training, and the sergeant in charge told the company commander they really don't need any training, they're as good as we are. So we fit right in.
What time frame was this? When did you arrive?
I arrived in England in October of '43.
Okay.
And we trained in England for the upcoming invasion of France, which happened the following June.
Right. Could you tell us about then how were your relations with the English people? Did you ever get much?
Oh, real good. They treated us well, and they were pretty brave people. I don't know whether or not this country could have withstood what they withstood, and I like them. I don't think the men that particularly cared for us. We were taking out their women, not me personally, but the rest of the army. But by and large, though, we were treated very well.
Did you ever experience any of the bombing or buzz bombing?
Well, yeah, but nothing hit close, But the first night in England, they had, the first night with the 1st Division, there was some bombings in the vicinity, So I said to myself, it didn't take long. But you kind of got used to it.
Did you receive any specialized training for the landings?
Well, we worked for in excess of 6 months, in connection with the landing.
Okay.
And a lot of physical training.
Could you describe your landings then at D-Day? You went in on D-Day.
Well, we happened to be in support of the 16th, our 16th Infantry, who made the initial assault. We were in the second wave, and of course they postponed the invasion for a day. The storms were so bad there in Europe at the time, and practically everybody was so seasick. it was, I never got seasick on the water, but I was really sick as a dog. I had some cans of soup that I had gotten when we first got on the ship. And I never saw anything like that before. There was a little wick on the can, and you lit the wick, and instantaneously it became hot soup. It was really good. So I and a few others found out where it was stored, and I filled my pack with it. But the sicker I got, I started thinking about that soup, so I flipped it all overboard. But,
Do you recall the planes going over?
No, actually the planes were supposed to hit the beach 5 minutes before H hour, but they never touched the beach. They went way inland and bombed inland. We did get a lot of support from the battleship Texas was in support. I think they had 14-inch guns, so we got a lot of support from them. In fact, they fired right over our heads, maybe about 50 yards in front of us, and it was too close, you know. The FO said, you know, forget it. We'll wind up killing our own people, you know. But it was rough getting in. The pilot kept saying that, he says, I'll try to get you in with dry feet. And he kept telling us that, and he kept maneuvering, and we kept running into sandbars and underwater obstacles. And
What kind of craft did you go in on?
an LCIL, Landing Craft Infantry Large. Right, he kept maneuvering to try to, he kept saying, I'll get you in with dry feet and all that. So the German artillery must have spotted us, and they dropped one on one side of the ship and the next one on the other side of the ship. You know the next one is going to be in your back pocket. And then the next one actually was a time fire, time on target, where it's time to explode overhead, you know. And when that happened, the pilot says, I'm sorry, fellas, I got to drop you off. So I dropped the ramp, and of course we had a lot of equipment on, and I jumped in, the water was over my head. I had about, I guess, 60 pounds of equipment on my back, and I had my rifle rigged up with a piece of string, and as I tried to progress in the water, I'd take a half a step, and the water was over my head. And then I would jump up and try to move up another half a step or so, and the rifle kept hitting me in the crotch. Oh man, I really wasn't afraid of getting shot or anything, but I just didn't want to drown, you know. So it was really, it took us, I can't believe that it was so far. It must have been like 100 yards, you know, until we got into land. And the water was really swift. A guy on my left flank had a pick and a shovel, a combination pick and shovel on his pack, and it fell off, and oh, he was screaming, give me that pick, eh? But the thing was really going fast, and the guy was almost frantic, you know. So I sort of kind of chuckled to that, you know. I thought it was funny. The guy made such a, you know, raised such a furor over a pick and shovel, you know. But he knew what he was talking about, because you sure needed it when you hit land. And when we finally got in, had these pebbles on the beach. and Germans let loose with a artillery barrage, and it hit right at water's edge. I'd say about a dozen of our guys got hit right away, and plus guys were getting hit in the water too, and drownings, and it was really really difficult getting in there, but we did. And when this artillery started to hit, the loudest voice I ever heard must have been one of our sergeants. Said, "Get off this beach." So I and 3 other guys ran up to this high ground, and we ran right through a minefield, and I heard a pop, and in my peripheral vision, I saw this guy flying through the air, the guy to my left rear. But I just kept going through, and I made it okay, and I made it to there was a ledge up there,
What beach were you on?
Omaha. That was the extent of what happened on the beach. And when we finally got off and we reorganized, tried to get everybody together, everybody was scattered, and then we proceeded to attack. Late that night, I guess it must have been 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, we were going through a wheat field, and Germans had it covered by machine gun fire. They had 2 machine guns crisscrossing. They had one firing about that high with all traces, and they had the other one, which you didn't know at the time, firing low, that had no traces. So when you stood up, you could cut in half. But anyhow, there was an open spot, and as we got to it, it was an open spot of about 15 yards. One guy at a time would sprint through. And when it was my turn, I sprinted through, and I hit a wire about this high. I had wires there for paratrooper obstacles. And I hit that thing, and my helmet went flying off, and somebody behind me says, "They just shot his head off." So I was throwing that helmet. It was a moonlight night, you could see fairly well. About 3 o'clock in the morning we stopped, and the company commander set up a circular defense, and he left one squad back for rear guard action to protect our rear. And this Jerry came with a burp gun. These guys were so tired, they were all sitting down on their cans and with their hands extended, And with about a couple of bursts, he killed the whole squad. Well, it wasn't a whole squad. It must have been about 8 guys, which we saw them the following morning. Then this Jerry runs into our perimeter, and when he begins to realize where he is, he throws up his hands and is yelling, "Comrade," But everybody took a shot at him. He hit the ground, and I remember one guy, one of the old soldiers, taking his watch. That was basically what happened on D-Day.
3 o'clock in the morning, were you still soaking wet?
Oh, well, they thought that if the Germans were to use gas, the beach would be the perfect spot for it. So we had gas-impregnated clothing that we wore. ODs. It stunk like hell, and once it got wet, it was heavy, and it stunk, and I don't think I was dry for maybe 3 weeks after that, you know.
So after D-Day, did you work your way into the hedgerow areas?
Oh yeah, we worked our way into the hedgerow, and then we had we had to stop at a place called Comont, which you know about Comont. The British tie-up were on our left. In fact, my platoon was supposed to tie in with them, but they never actually caught up to us. They were going to take Caen, which didn't happen for a long time after that. And on our right, whoever the unit was on our right didn't pull up alongside of us, and we were sticking out, getting hit from 3 sides, so it caused a stalemate there. We had to wait until the flanks caught up. The left flank never caught up. The British never did catch up. The dividing point was a road, and the best they could do was patrol the road with a small squad, you know, maybe once a day or so. And we stayed there until July sometime. It was all hedgerows, and we'd done an awful lot of patrolling there, and there was a lot of shelling. You couldn't move during the day, you know. They could observe us and we could observe them, you know. Like there was a valley, and the Germans were up on a higher ground. But they would patrol at night, and so would we. Which, it sounds easy, but and patrols will give you gray hair, believe me.
Did you run into a lot of minefields too?
Well, no, we had a minefield. We had a minefield in front of one of our platoons. And we never caught any Germans in there, but one of our own guys stepped on a mine. At least one that I can remember. And so we stayed there until mid-July. And the 5th Division came up and they relieved us in place. And they moved us back, and we went to St. Lo. And there we made the breakthrough. We broke out of the stalemate at St. Lo. We had 3,000 planes in support. They bombed a small area out in front of us. And we made the breakthrough there.
Did you ever do much street fighting?
Yeah, we, not necessarily in France, but when we got to Germany, my battalion along with the 3rd Battalion took the first big city in Germany to fall, Aachen. And it took us a week to get through the city, and we done an awful lot of street fighting there.
Did you have any time when you took R&R after being up on the front so long?
Well, the first time I had R&R was after the Battle of the Hürtgen Forest. It was a very, very bad place, and every division that went in there got chopped up. We were in there maybe less than a month, and I'd say that we turned over in personnel in that short time. But after we came out of there, me, the company commander, and another fellow from the weapons platoon got R&R. We went to Paris. And when we came back, then the Battle of the, we were there they moved us into this place in Belgium for a rest, you know. But then the Battle of the Bulge started, so we went right back up there. And the Bulge started on the 16th, and we arrived in a place called Butenbach in Belgium, where we then met the Germans and stopped them.
Now, did you have winter equipment?
No, we didn't, and a lot of the people got trench foot up there. They lost. I happened to see something on TV a couple of weeks ago. I'd really forgotten what those guys looked like, but they showed some of them in the hospital, and their legs and feet were black. And that was from your feet being wet and cold. But no, we had no equipment at all. All I had during the Bulge was a regular field jacket, which I'm wearing in one of these pictures. And that's how.
Well, when was that taken?
That was taken in December of 1944.
Now, what are you wearing on your feet?
On my feet?
Yeah.
Just regular boots. I had paratrooper boots, which I had purchased, and I was able to get through. And believe me, it was a terrible, terrible winter. When we attacked out of there, they had to give us a half a pound of dynamite apiece when we hit our objective, which was a crossroads. We used the dynamite to kind of start a foxhole, you know. It was just like going through concrete. It was really frozen. So it was a terrible winter. They tell me that they had equipment for us, but I guess the black market. Anyway, it was short-stopped before it got to the front. The fighting man never got any of that stuff.
How about your food supplies?
Well, just the bare necessities, you know, sea rations. And I broke many a spoon in the sea ration. Sea rations were frozen. And it was pretty difficult.
Okay, after the Bulge, then you ended up into moving into northern France and
after
Germany?
the Bulge, well, we had a very bad battle in Belgium, around where the Dragon's Teeth were, a place called Diepenlinken, and we went in there full strength, and 4 days and 5 attacks later, we came out of there. We took a count with 36 men. And it was a very, very bad battle. And after that is when we went into Ardennes. We reorganized, and gave the new replacements a couple of days of training, and then we went into Ardennes. Then the Regt forest after that, which it hasn't gotten much publicity, but it was one of the most brutal places that I was ever in.
Why?
Well, the weather for one thing, the constant shelling, even if you were in a foxhole, you get hit with the tree bursts. It would burst up in the trees and get you right in the foxhole. You couldn't see much. It was 50 square miles of forest.
Did you ever see the Germans did they have the white parkas on? Did you ever see any with?
No, I never saw them. They gave us, when we made this attack, out of the Bells, the first attack. They gave us, they made snowsuits. They were made out of sheets, like, you know.
So they weren't waterproof or anything?
Oh, no. But we wore that right over the field jacket.
I guess, could you just tell us about the rest of your service through?
Well, it's, you know,
Yeah.
it's difficult thinking back, but I would like to say this, that when we hit the beach, we had 219 people. We were over TO, and we had extra people in key positions. And of those original 219 people that hit the beach, I and another guy made it through to Czechoslovakia without being killed, captured, or wounded. There's only two in the company. So we did take an awful lot of casualties.
And you continue to receive replacements too.
Yeah, we continued to get replacements as we went along.
How were the replacements treated?
They were good, you know. It's a very tough thing. I don't know whether I could handle that myself, you know, to bring you in and instantaneously you're in hell. Some of the places were as bad as hell, I'm sure. So it had to be very difficult for him. When I joined in England, I know the guys were all good to me, and I always was good to a replacement. And so were the other fellas too. Nobody, you didn't sometimes get a chance to really meet them. You know, sometimes you were taking those casualties so quickly, you wouldn't even have them down on your roster. But of course, today things are different. If this country takes a few casualties, it's a big deal, and there's a lot of pressure. And but in those days, you know, we were there for a purpose. We were there for the duration and 6 months after that, and things were different.
I noticed in this form you said you were basically in combat for almost 337 days.
Yeah, I don't remember writing that, but I guess I did. It was 11 months plus, you know. And as I recall, I read something on it at the time after the war was over. We were out of artillery range for about 6 days out of all that time. So even if you know you pulled back for a little rest, you were still subject to artillery fire and stuff like that.
Okay, do you have any other experiences you want to relate, or is...
It's so hard to
Yeah.
you know to think. I've had an awful lot of experiences, but it's hard thinking about it, you know.
Did you ever attend any USO shows at all?
No, I never saw a USO show. Even when we were in England, we never had one. The best that I saw when they moved us back from Comont, I saw a movie. It was called See Here, Private Hargrave. It was a pretty good movie. And I read the book prior to that, and I really liked the book. But that was the extent of all the, you know, entertainment, the one movie that I can recall.
How did you feel when you heard about the death of President Roosevelt?
Well, then too, we had a very bad fight that day, and we lost a platoon of people, and we didn't give that too much thought.
It was just what?
Yeah, I mean,
happened
we were
immediately.
going through so much ourselves that it was, you know, it's unfortunately that, you know, we had our own troubles.
Yeah, yeah. Now I noticed you were discharged in October of 45. Did you stay in occupation in Central Europe?
Oh,
or-
yeah, and we finished up in Czechoslovakia. We stayed there, I don't know, for approximately 6 weeks or so. And then the Russians relieved us. Oh, and the civilians were crying, and they hated the Russians, and rightly so. I've always been wary of the Russians right up until the present date.
Did you have any encounters with any of the Russians?
No, I personally didn't, no.
Were you aware of the existence of any of the concentration camps?
Well, we had been through some of the places but none of the big concentration camps. We were in a place called Nordhausen towards the end of the war, and there was some evidence of it there. And there too, I think they were working on the atomic bomb themselves, I believe, in that area. And from Czechoslovakia, my regiment was sent back to Nuremberg, and we assisted in the war crimes trials.
Oh, okay.
But of course, you know, I didn't assist that much because, you know, we were the High Point people, and I got to come home, you know, after a while.
What did you do in Nuremberg, your unit?
Well, they made MPs out of us. And I remember, me personally, and why they had me, I was only an enlisted man, they had me take a survey of the old Nuremberg. There was a walled city, and that's where all the black marketing was going on, you know. And they wanted to find out what troops were in that area. Why, I really don't know. But one night, we got word that these hijackers, they were hijacking convoys and stuff. They got word that these hijackers would be operating. So they got my company, and we fixed bayonets, and we deployed along this road where they thought that, you know, these people would try to make a hit. But nobody showed up. But they were Americans involved in you know, black market. But I can assure you that that group of people would have really taken care of those hijackers, whether they were American or not.
Where were you? How did you return home?
Well, I and a lot of my buddies, they sent us to the 9th Armored Division. That's the people that captured that bridge going across the Rhine, you know. And I came home with the 9th Armored Division. There was a strike on in New York at the time, and the big thing during the war was the Statue of Liberty, you know, reminisce about that. But there was a longshoreman strike in New York, so they shipped us. We went into Virginia, and they had a band there and welcoming us back home, you know. And from there, we stayed there about a week or so. And the first night in the States, they had a steak dinner for us. Steak dinner and ice cream. First time we'd seen ice cream in a few years. And they had German prisoners doing the KP. and waiting on tables. From there, then we went to Fort Dix. But I went to Fort Dix. Other people went to other parts of the country.
Did you, after discharge, did you use the GI Bill at all?
No, unfortunately, I didn't.
How about the 5220 Club?
I was working for the railroad, and I took a month off, exactly 1 month, and I didn't even collect during those 4 weeks. I never got anything from the government. I wasn't wounded. I wasn't entitled to any medical benefits or anything like that. Although I was injured. I banged up my ankle, and every time we stopped, I used to get rolls of tape and tape my ankle up. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to walk. But I never got anything. I mean, you're a kid and you don't understand. Of course, if I could do it all over again, I'd be pretty smart.
Did you want to show some of the pictures you've got?
Yeah, there's only a few of them here. Well, this was.
If you can hold them back farther, I can zoom in on them and focus.
I might as well take my hat off for the rest of it.
Okay. When was that taken?
That was taken shortly before D-Day, and probably in March or April of '44.
Okay.
That one you showed already.
Okay.
Earlier.
Did they take that?
Yes.
Well, this was in the Battle of the Bulge too. Platoon Sergeant Wright was standing next to me, and he was killed soon thereafter.
Okay. You're the one with the mustache, I take it.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Got it.
Now, did you stay in contact with anyone after the war?
Yes, I did. And I had been going to... now, here's a picture taken on VE Day. If you note the mud on our shoes and stuff,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it was a very muddy day. And this is on May 7th. And we were still attacking on May 7th. Which actually is when the war ended. They didn't sign until May the 8th.
Got it.
Have you gone to any reunions? Or?
Yes, I've been back to Europe a couple of times. I was there on the 40th anniversary and the 45th anniversary. I've been to many division reunions. And then we had started a company reunion about 20 years or so ago. And then also regimental reunions.
Did you see the movie Private Ryan?
I did.
What did you think?
I thought it was very good. It was the closest thing that I've seen in the movies. I liked it.
How do you think your service affected your life?
It didn't affect it at all. In fact, I'm kind of grateful that I had the privilege to be able to serve in that capacity, And I probably didn't like it too much at the time, but I'm happy that I was able to make it through and do it like a man.
Okay, thank you very much for your
Yes,
interview.
thank you.
Okay.